At the mall, my 11-year-old clutched my hand and said, "Mom, quickly behind that pillar." She murmured, "Don't move." I stole a glance and froze in horror because my mother-in-law was... Wait, what? I stayed silent and took action. The next morning, they went pale. Black Friday at the Mall of America is loud in a very specific way. Shopping bags slapping knees, kids whining, the air smelling like pretzels and perfume. Lily's fingers locked around mine so hard her knuckles went white. She pulled me behind a fake marble pillar near the rotunda and whispered, "Don't move." I leaned just enough to see what she saw, and my brain tripped over itself. Ethan, my husband, walking like he owned the place, and Doris, his frail mom, balanced on heels like she'd worn them her whole life. She wasn't clutching a cane. She wasn't shuffling. She had a glossy blowout, a fitted coat, and she laughed. Actually laughed. While Ethan held her elbow like they were on a date. Lily's breath ticked fast against my sleeve. "That's her," she said, voice tight. I didn't answer because my throat was doing something stubborn. Ethan had texted me that morning, taking Mom to the clinic. Doris had spent last night confused on our couch, asking Lily the same question 3 times. And now she was striding past Sephora like nothing was wrong. I squeezed Lily's hand once, twice, a code for stay with me. The lie walked by in heels. I kept us tucked behind the pillar as Ethan and Doris, if that was Doris, moved with the crowd toward the jewelry wing. Lily tried to peek again, and I caught her shoulder gently. "Eyes down," I whispered. She nodded, but her face was flushed with that particular anger kids get when adults treat them like furniture. Ethan stopped at a kiosk with velvet trays and leaned in close, smiling. The woman beside him lifted her wrist and turned it under the lights like she'd done it 1,000 times. A sales associate pulled out a loop. Ethan's shoulders relaxed, like a man who'd finally found something that worked. The woman's hand flashed as she pointed, and I saw a manicure so fresh it looked wet. Doris, in our house, claimed she couldn't stand the smell of nail polish. Ethan tapped his phone screen and the associate's posture changed. More attentive, more careful. Lily swallowed hard. "Mom," she murmured. "Why is he here with her?" I didn't answer out loud. I watched Ethan tuck something small into his pocket. Maybe a business card, maybe a receipt. Then guide her toward Nordstrom with his palm at her lower back. That touch wasn't for someone's mother. I turned Lily so her face was hidden by my coat, and we moved with the crowd in the opposite direction. He wasn't just lying. He was shopping. We didn't run. Running makes you visible. I walked Lily through the food court like we belonged there, ordered a bottle of water we didn't drink, and found a corner table behind a stanchion. Lily's eyes stayed glued to the entrances like she expected Ethan to pop out and catch us. "Talk to me," I said softly. She kept her voice low. "Grandma Doris told me not to tell you something," she said, and the words came out clipped like she'd practiced them. "Last week, when you were at work, she said someone was coming over, and if you asked, I should say nobody came." My stomach tightened. "What lady?" Lily shook her head. "I didn't see. Ethan took me to my room and said it was adult stuff. Then Doris said I should call her grandma louder, like I wasn't doing it right." Lily's eyes flicked down to my hands. "She grabbed my wrist," she added, like she hated herself for saying it. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to make a point. I set my palm over Lily's. "You did nothing wrong," I said. "Nothing." Her shoulders dropped a fraction. Then she looked up and said, "And she can walk. I saw her in the garage. She walked like a normal person." My kid had been carrying that alone. The drive down the parking ramp felt like descending into a quieter kind of noise. Lily stared out the window at the concrete walls scrolling by, and my phone buzzed on the console. "Ethan, clinic is running late. Mom's confused. Don't worry, I didn't respond right away. I pulled into a spot, turned off the engine, and looked at Lily. We're going to do exactly what we always do, I told her. We're going home. You're going to eat. You're going to do your homework, and you're going to let me be the adult. She nodded, but she didn't look relieved. She looked like she was waiting for the next hit. At home, Ethan didn't come back until after dark, carrying a pharmacy bag like a prop. Rough day, he sighed, dropping a kiss on my cheek that didn't land right. From the couch, Doris's thin voice floated out, sweet as syrup. Megan, honey, did I already meet you today? Ethan shot me a look that said play along. I did. After Lily went to bed, I found a stack of papers on the kitchen counter with a sticky note in Ethan's handwriting. Sign so I can help with Mom's care. It wasn't for Mom's care. It was a power of attorney packet with blank signature lines. I slid it into my work bag without making a sound. That was the moment I got quiet. A week earlier, my life had been measured in due dates and receipts. I'd sit at the kitchen table after Lily fell asleep, laptop open, bills spread out in neat piles like I could control them by sorting. Ethan would hover behind me, rubbing his neck, practicing the same tired lines. I'm trying, Meg. The job market's brutal. He always said brutal like it was a weather report. I'd ask, where did you apply today? And he'd answer with fog. A few places. Some leads. I've got a call. Meanwhile, the mortgage went through because I paid it. Lily's orthodontist appointment happened because I scheduled it. Doris's care became my third job because Ethan swore she couldn't be alone. She's declining, he'd say, eyes shiny. Please, just until I'm working again. One night I pointed at the spreadsheet and said, We are down to one real paycheck. Ethan's face tightened for half a second. We have assets, he said quickly. We're not poor. Then he glanced toward the hall closet where the safe lived. He didn't say the word, but it hung between us. He'd started counting what wasn't his. Doris arrived with a walker and a suitcase, wearing oversized sweaters, and that helpless smile that made people soften on instinct. I'd only met Ethan's mom a handful of times. She lived out of state, so I had no reason to doubt the woman who showed up at our door. The first day, she forgot Lily's name twice, and Lily was polite anyway. The second day, Doris insisted Lily fetch her water, then complained it was too cold. Ethan patted Doris's shoulder, sighing like a saint. She doesn't mean it, he told Lily, loud enough for me to hear. Her brain is slipping. But slipping brains don't track household power. Doris did. She asked where we kept our spare keys. She asked if Lily had chores, like a real family. She corrected how Lily set the table and told her, In this family, we show respect. One afternoon, Lily came into the kitchen with her lips pressed tight and whispered, She went in my room. I walked to Lily's doorway and saw her dresser drawers slightly open. Doris sat on the couch, hands folded, staring at the TV like she'd been there all day. Did you go into Lily's room? I asked. Doris blinked slowly. Did I? She said, then looked at Ethan. Ethan stepped in front of her like a shield. Meg, don't interrogate her, he snapped, then softened instantly. She gets confused. Confused people don't test boundaries that cleanly. The bracelet entered our house in a slim black box with a lawyer's letter attached. It wasn't jewelry to me. It was a promise. Lily's biological dad had died when she was little, and his family had money they kept behind words like trust and fiduciary and discretion. The bracelet, antique, heavy, set with stones that caught light like ice, was one of the few tangible pieces Lily would ever touch. The appraisal came with it. Estimated value $150,000 to $250,000, depending on market and condition. I didn't show Lily the number. I showed her the box and said, This is yours when you're older. It's safe. I stored the appraisal paperwork in a folder, put the bracelet in our small home safe, and memorized the combination like it was Lily's birthday. Ethan watched this process from the doorway, silent. Later that night, when I told him the estimate, his eyebrows went up before he could stop them. "That's a lot," he said, and his voice changed shape. "So the trust is paying for Lily's college, right?" I said, "The trust pays what the trustees approve." Ethan's jaw ticked. "And you're the one talking to the lawyer." That number rewired him. A few days after the bracelet arrived, Ethan started leaving documents accidentally on the counter, forms with helpful tabs, highlighted sections, sticky notes that pretended to be casual. "It would just make things easier," he said one evening, sliding a paper toward me. "If something happened to you, I'd need authority to help Lily, to help Mom. It's just standard." I read the header. Durable power of attorney. Not for Lily. For me. For assets. For financial decisions. I set it down. "I'm not signing that tonight," I said. Ethan exhaled like I was being childish. "Why are you like this?" he asked, too sharp. "Like what?" I kept my voice level. "Like I'm trying to steal from you?" He leaned in. "I'm your husband," he said, quiet and intense. "You don't lock your husband out." Doris called from the living room, voice trembling perfectly. "Ethan? Sweetheart? I'm scared again." Ethan's eyes flicked toward her, then back to me. "She needs us," he said, using us like a weapon. And suddenly, everything was about access. The day I met Jake Miller, I hadn't slept more than 3 hours. Doris had woken Lily at 2 a.m. because she couldn't find the bathroom, and Ethan had slept through it like a rock. I dropped Lily at school, then drove with my jaw clenched to a coffee shop near my office because I needed caffeine and 5 minutes where nobody needed me. That's when someone said my name like it mattered. "Megan?" I turned and saw a man in a plain jacket, short hair, familiar eyes. "Jake?" We'd gone to the same high school, back when my biggest problem was a chemistry test. He smiled, then flashed a badge only after he realized I was staring at his belt out of habit. "Detective now," he said. "I'm in Bloomington most days." I gave a tired laugh that didn't reach my face. "Congratulations," I said. He studied me for half a second. "You okay?" he asked, not casual. I hesitated, then said the smallest true thing. "Something feels off at home." Jake didn't pry. He slid a card across the table. "If you ever need to talk through something, just reality check it. Call me," he said. My phone buzzed then. A notification from our door sensor. Front door opened. I hadn't told anyone my schedule had shifted. My day just changed lanes. I drove home fast but not reckless, because Lily needed a mom, not a headline. When I pulled into the driveway, my first clue wasn't broken glass. It was silence. Our porch light was off even though I'd left it on. The front door wasn't wide open. It was unlatched, like someone had closed it softly behind them. I stepped inside and smelled something sharp, like cold air and disturbed dust. "Hello?" I called, keeping my voice normal. No answer. The living room looked almost right, but the throw blanket was on the floor and the side table drawer was cracked open. I walked the hallway and saw Lily's bedroom door ajar. Her closet light was on. My hands stayed steady as I shut her door again. In the kitchen, a chair was pushed back at an odd angle, and my work bag, where I'd hidden Ethan's paperwork, was tipped over, papers peeking out like a tongue. I crouched, slid the documents back inside, and stood. I didn't shout for Ethan. I didn't call Doris's name. I went straight to the hall closet where the safe lived behind a row of boring storage bins. The bins had been moved. Not far, just enough to tell me someone had been there. Someone had been careful in my house. I knelt in front of the safe and spun the dial with fingers that felt too cold. The door swung open. The black bracelet box was still inside, and for half a second my lungs worked again. Then I saw the empty space beneath it where my folder should have been. The appraisal packet, my proof, my paper trail, was gone. I checked the box anyway. The bracelet wasn't there, just tissue paper shaped like a cruel joke. I sat back on my heels, not crying, not shaking, just recalculating. My phone was in my hand before I decided to pick it up. I called Ethan. He answered on the second ring, cheerful. "Hey, babe," he said. "Mom's having a rough—" "Where are you?" I asked. Silence. Then a small laugh. "At the clinic. Where else?" I stared at the faint scratch near the doorframe, the kind you could make with a key if you knew how to wiggle a latch. "Someone's been in the house," I said. Ethan inhaled like he was annoyed. "Megan, don't start," he said. "You're always imagining—" I hung up. Then I called the number on Jake's card. I didn't need comfort. I needed a witness. Jake didn't show up with sirens. He showed up the way real help looks, quick, quiet, not theatrical. He walked through my front door, took in the tipped chair, the moved bins, the safe location, and he asked simple questions in a steady tone. "When did you last see the bracelet? Who knows where you keep it? Any cameras?" I answered without extra words. Jake crouched by the door and ran his finger along the latch. "This isn't a random smash and grab," he said. "They didn't take your TV. They didn't take your laptop." He walked into the kitchen and opened a drawer I hadn't checked yet. Inside were my checkbook and a stack of mail, untouched. "They came for one thing," he said. I swallowed. "And paperwork," I added. Jake's eyes lifted to mine. "Paperwork is the part that makes this weird," he said. "A thief who knows what an appraisal looks like is either experienced or informed." He stood and looked toward the living room where Doris's knitting sat perfectly arranged. "Who had access to the house?" he asked. I hesitated for a beat, then said it. "My husband, his mom, and a caregiver we had briefly." Jake nodded once, like he'd already guessed. "I'm going to file this properly," he said. "But Megan, treat this like an inside job until proven otherwise." The theft had a face, even if I didn't want it. Ethan came home that evening carrying takeout like a peace offering. Doris shuffled behind him, leaning heavy on her walker, eyes watery. Ethan set the food down and looked at Jake's business card on my counter like it was contamination. "You called a cop?" he snapped. "A detective," I corrected, calm. "Because our safe was opened." Doris gasped. "Oh my," she whispered. "In my son's home?" Ethan pressed his palms to the counter. "Insurance, Megan," he said. "We do insurance. You don't drag strangers into our family business." Jake wasn't there anymore. He'd left after taking photos and statements, but Ethan acted like Jake was hiding in the pantry. I said, "The bracelet is gone." Doris sank onto the couch like her bones turned to water. "That poor baby," she moaned. "Lily will be devastated." Her eyes flicked toward Lily's hallway, sharp for half a second. Ethan leaned closer to me. "Listen," he said in a low voice. "It's just a thing. We'll handle it. Don't stir this up." I said, "Someone came into our house." Ethan's smile was tight. "And you're going to make it worse," he said. Then he reached for my phone, palm up. "Let me see what you told him," he said, like it was reasonable. I slid the phone into my pocket. "No," I said. Doris sniffed loudly. "Megan doesn't trust family," she murmured. They weren't scared of the theft. They were scared of daylight. 2 days later, I ran into Carla in the produce aisle at Target. She used to come by for a few hours when Ethan insisted Doris needed constant care. Carla was warm, competent, and she'd treated Lily like a person. Then one afternoon she texted me an apology and said she couldn't return. Ethan claimed Doris had accused Carla of stealing pills. I'd hated that story, but I'd been too tired to fight it. Carla's eyes widened when she saw me. "Megan?" she said softly, glancing around like someone might be listening. "I've been meaning to call you." We moved to the end of the aisle near the bananas, pretending to compare prices. Carla leaned in. "She didn't accuse me of stealing pills," she whispered. "Your husband did. He said Doris felt unsafe with me." My throat tightened. "Why?" I asked. Carla's mouth pressed into a line. "Because I wrote down what I saw," she said. She wasn't confused, Megan. Not most days. She'd act lost when he was in the room, but when he left, she'd pull out a smartphone and scroll like any other woman. Carla's eyes flicked to my face. "She had this perfume," she added. "Not old lady perfume. Expensive. And her nails. Always done." I stared at Carla's cart, my mind snapping pieces into place. "You're sure?" I asked. Carla nodded once. "I'm sure enough I got fired for noticing." The mask had seams, and Carla had seen them. After that, I watched Doris the way you watch someone holding a glass too close to the edge of a table. I didn't stare. I didn't accuse. I just noticed. On Tuesday morning, she couldn't remember how to work the TV remote, but she remembered the passcode to Ethan's phone when he handed it to her. On Wednesday, she said her joints hurt too badly to stand. Then 5 minutes later, when she thought I was in the laundry room, she walked to the window without the walker, posture straight, and peered out like a lookout. I stood still behind the doorway and listened. Doris hummed under her breath, and it wasn't shaky or old. It was light. Young. Later that day, she leaned close to Ethan in the kitchen and said, "Baby, did you talk to her yet?" The word baby landed in my chest like a dropped weight. Ethan's head snapped up, saw me, and his smile stretched too wide. "Mom," he said quickly, loud, "remember we talked about calling me Ethan?" Doris blinked, then did the helpless act again. "Did I say the wrong thing?" she asked. I nodded like it didn't matter. Inside, something in me went very still. The next lie would need effort from me, and I refused to give it. On Black Friday, I went back to the Mall of America with Lily under the excuse of returning a coat I'd bought online. It wasn't an errand, it was confirmation. I kept Lily close, but didn't tell her the whole plan, because she deserved to be a kid, not a co-investigator. We entered through a quieter door near the hotel, and I saw them almost immediately. Ethan was in the jewelry wing with her again. No walker, no slump, the same confident ease. Her hair wasn't the same as Doris's at home. It was darker, her face wasn't lined, and when she turned, I saw a small tattoo near her wrist I'd never seen on Doris. A sales clerk smiled and said, "Your private counter is ready, Vanessa." The woman, Vanessa, tilted her head and smiled like she'd won. Ethan stayed close, guiding her with the kind of familiarity that didn't belong in a mother-son story. Lily's grip on me tightened, and I felt her body go rigid. Vanessa's eyes tracked the crowd and landed on us. For a split second, her smile fell away. Ethan followed her gaze, saw me, and his face drained of color. I didn't wave. I didn't step forward. I simply turned Lily gently and said, "We're leaving." That's when I got calm for good. The next morning, I called in late to work, dropped Lily at school, and drove to an inheritance attorney's office with my hands steady on the wheel. I didn't tell Ethan where I was going. I didn't warn him. I brought every document I had: trust correspondence, the appraisal email chain, the police report number Jake had given me, and the unsigned power of attorney packet Ethan had tried to slide under my nose. The attorney, a woman with sharp glasses and a voice that didn't waste time, listened while I laid out facts in order. "Your husband is not a trustee," she confirmed. "He has no right to Lily's trust assets. but he can cause chaos if you give him access through you. I said, I won't. She slid papers across the desk. Protective filings, asset safeguards, a trust structure that placed Lily first and made my signature harder to exploit. I signed with a calm I didn't recognize, then called the trust contact and they said, flag any request connected to Ethan. On the way out, I froze my credit from my phone in the parking lot like it was just another chore. When I got home, Ethan was waiting, Doris beside him in her sweater costume. I brought papers, Ethan said brightly, to make things easier. I smiled, small. I already signed papers, I said. With my attorney. Ethan and Doris changed at the same time, pale, flat, suddenly aware. My quiet move landed like a door locking. Jake met me that afternoon in a public place, bright, neutral, impossible to twist into a story about harassment. We sat at a table in a busy cafe, and I slid him what I had, the timeline, the caregiver info, the mall confirmation, the attorney's notes. Jake didn't act shocked. He acted focused. If they stole the bracelet, they'll try to move it, he said. But high-value pieces are hard to sell clean. I said, so we make it dirty. Jake nodded once. He helped me draft a simple notice for local dealers and pawn shops. No dramatics, just a stolen item report number and a description. He also walked me through what I could record in my own home without making the case messy. We chose cameras, not because it was sneaky, but because it was clean. I installed 2 small ones myself, one facing the hallway, one angled toward the closet where the safe lived. Nothing hidden in bedrooms, nothing creepy. Then I did the part that felt like swallowing glass. I baited them. I called Ethan on speaker and said, I'm meeting about Lily's assets. There's another appraisal file I need to locate. I let a pause hang. Ethan's voice sharpened. Another? He asked too fast. I said, it's paperwork. Don't worry. He worried anyway. That evening, I made dinner like usual. Lily did math at the table, and I kept the house boring on purpose. Ethan hovered around the cabinets, pretending to help, asking questions he didn't need answered. So, what did the lawyer say? He asked, casual. I said, she said Lily's trust is protected. Ethan smiled like a man forcing his face into the right shape. Good, he said. Then Doris drifted in, wrapped in a blanket like a costume, and peered at Lily's homework. Numbers are hard, she sighed. Lily didn't respond. After Lily went upstairs, Ethan tried again. Let me see the documents, he said, tone firm. I'm your husband. I said, no. He leaned closer. If you don't trust me, he murmured. What are we even doing? I held his gaze. Keeping Lily safe, I said. A shadow crossed his face, quick and ugly. Doris's voice floated from the couch, too bright. Megan, honey, I'm hungry, she called. Ethan snapped into soft mode instantly. I'll get you something, Mom. Doris, Vanessa, watched me over the blanket, and I watched her back without blinking. They were going to move soon. I could feel it. The next day, I created the opportunity without announcing it. I told Ethan I needed to pick up Lily early for a school appointment and that I'd be gone for an hour. That wasn't true. Lily stayed at school, safe, because I'd already updated her pickup list and password with the office. Quiet, practical steps. I left the house, drove around the block, and parked where I could see my front walk without being obvious. Ethan, Jake said, we need to talk about a theft and a stolen item. 20 minutes passed. 30. Then the front door opened, slow. Ethan stepped out, looked down the street like he was checking for witnesses, and waved. A car pulled up, and Vanessa got out wearing Doris's cardigan like a disguise she was tired of. She moved fast, no limp at all. They went inside together. On the camera feed, I watched them head straight to the hall closet. Ethan yanked bins aside with practiced hands. Vanessa hissed, "Hurry!" Ethan replied, "I know where she keeps it." Then Vanessa said, clear as day, "The buyer won't wait forever." Ethan laughed under his breath. "Once we have it," he said, "she can't do anything." Vanessa opened the safe with a speed that made my skin crawl. "Where's the folder?" she snapped. Ethan's voice went tight. "She moved it." They tore through drawers anyway, angry, sloppy, and that's when they talked themselves into handcuffs. Jake didn't kick down my door. He coordinated like a professional because he is one. When Ethan and Vanessa came back out, empty-handed but buzzing with frustration, they froze at the curb. Jake stepped forward with 2 uniformed officers, calm and direct. "Ethan," Jake said, "we need to talk about a burglary and a stolen item." Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. Vanessa's eyes widened, and she tried to fold into the Doris character. "Officer," she wheezed, "I don't understand. I'm just his mother." Jake's gaze didn't shift. "Your name is Vanessa," he said evenly. "We have video and audio of you discussing a buyer." Vanessa's face changed, anger flickering through the fake weakness. "This is insane!" she snapped, voice suddenly young and sharp. Ethan took a step back, like he might run. One officer gently redirected him with a hand at his elbow. Ethan looked at me then. I had walked up and stood beside Jake, not shaking, not crying. "Megan," Ethan said, pleading fast, Tell them this is a misunderstanding." I stared at him and said, "You broke into my safe and stole from Lily." The words sounded plain, because they were plain. His story died in public. By the time Lily got home, Ethan was gone, and the house felt like a place that belonged to me again. I told her only what she needed. Ethan made choices that aren't safe. He won't be here. Lily sat very still on the couch, then nodded once like she'd already been bracing for it. The next day, I changed the locks myself with a kit from the hardware store, screws biting clean into the doorframe. I canceled the spare code on the garage keypad and collected every emergency key Ethan had scattered around. Jake helped me file for a protective order, not as a dramatic gesture, but as a practical boundary with consequences. Then the second front hit. My phone pinged with a fraud alert, an attempted large purchase on our old joint card at an electronics store. I didn't call Ethan. I didn't argue. I tapped decline, called the bank, and shut the card down. Within an hour, there was another attempt, this time at an online cash transfer service. The pattern was frantic, like a man realizing the exits were closing. I opened a family group chat, Ethan's sister, his aunt, anyone who might check on Doris, and wrote one factual text. "Ethan and Vanessa are not allowed at my home or Lily's school. Please do not share our location." No emojis, no anger, just a line. He tried money next and hit a wall. A week later, a jewelry dealer called the number on the stolen item notice. "We got an inquiry about a bracelet that matches your description," he said, cautious. "We haven't bought it. We wanted to verify." I thanked him and forwarded the information to Jake. The bracelet surfaced the way stolen things often do, not through a dramatic reveal, but through a paper trail and a person who didn't want trouble. When Jake handed me the evidence bag at the station, I didn't open it right away. I asked him, "Is it really back?" Jake nodded. "It's back," he said. I drove home and opened the bag at my kitchen table with Lily beside me. The bracelet caught the light, exactly the same, heavy and cold and real. Lily didn't touch it. She just stared, then whispered, "So it wasn't my fault." I set the bracelet back in the box and slid it toward her. "It was never your fault," I said. I filed for divorce the same week, and my attorney moved quickly to protect Lily's trust from any attempt at interference. Vanessa tried calling from an unknown number once. I blocked it without listening. Safety is built from small, firm moves. A few months later, our life looked ordinary from the outside, which was the point. Lily and I moved into a smaller place with bright windows and neighbors who minded their business. I kept my routines tight. School pickup passwords, credit monitoring, doors locked the same way every night. The bracelet stayed in a safe deposit box under Lily's name, handled through the trust the way it should have been all along. Sometimes Lily would ask a question while brushing her teeth. Small, practical questions like, "Can someone pretend to be family again?" And I'd answer with facts, not fear. "They can try," I'd say. "And we can stop them." Jake checked in once in a while with quick updates, never crossing lines, never making it emotional. One afternoon, he dropped off a final document confirming the case evidence return, and he paused at my doorway. "You did this the right way," he said simply. I nodded. "I did it the quiet way," I replied. Lily from the living room called, "Mom, can we make hot chocolate?" I said yes, because that's what normal looks like now. If someone in your life wore a mask to get access to your kid, what would you lock down first? Because peace is a system, not a feeling. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more.